ئێستا پەناڵەکانمان دەست پێ ئەکا پەنێڵی یەکەمیان باسی ئیکۆسیستەمی عێراقیەکەین کە لەلایەن سەفوە سالمەوە بەڕێوە ئەبرێت. Our number one panel is by Safwa Salim, the moderator. Now is beginning. Please welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Safwa Salim. I will be moderating the first panel on Iraqi tech ecosystem, building tech skills and remote work. I would like also to invite to the stage our esteemed guest and panelists. First, Mr. Yōhāness pōpڵ, advisor on digital skills and technology trainings at GIZ. Also, Ms. Hērō محەممەد, founder of Bhutan IT solution startup, and Dr. ڕەندی ڕەهبەر, founder of Shopasar, and joining us also Dr. هێمین لەتیف, director of entrepreneurship and innovation at the American University of Sulaimani, and also the founder and director of Design Art Agora. We'll just wait for a few seconds until the earpieces are all set up. Please welcome Mr. Yōhāness pōpڵ. Welcome. I think that this one. Yes, yes. Join us also هێرۆ محەممەد from Bhutan. It's not working? No, it's not working. Can you test it?
Hello?
Yeah, it's working.
This one is working.
No, I was just going to comment that these devices are not woman-friendly at all because they don't work with hair at all.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
The panel today is talking about the Iraqi tech ecosystem. As you might notice, in the last few years, we have witnessed a boom and surge in this ecosystem with many startups and aspiring entrepreneurs navigating the challenges. We also saw the private sector trying to develop and flourish in this industry. We will shed the light on navigating those challenges. Also the challenge of tech skills for youth, and how can we build their capacity, and is the Iraqi ecosystem today ready to adopt remote work model? What are the drawbacks? What are the advantages? And how can we embrace it? I would first like to start the conversation going with هێرۆ, as a founder of Bhutan. How was your journey navigating the challenges of this ecosystem? And what are the most major challenges you faced and how you overcome them?
Thank you very much, Safwa, first of all, for moderating the panel. Coming all over from Baghdad, from capital, to being Sulaimani and moderate the panel about the Iraqi tech ecosystem. My name is Hērō. I'm the founder of Bhutan. I started Bhutan, a software development company, in 2020. As we can all see, the startup and tech ecosystem is just in the beginning, but there is opportunity, but we have many obstacles, and the obstacles can be categorized into different aspects. I think one of the very critical obstacles that we have is the regulations of these tech startups and the tech ecosystem itself. For example, the laws that we have in Iraq and Kurdistan that are putting pressure on a lot of people, even decision makers, and it's very hard to work around these laws. For example, we had the old company registration law, we have the social security law that's not startup and tech friendly, we have the tax law that's not optimized for startups as well. For example, like if you consider the tax regulations, a startup that was just established a year ago is treated the same as a company that has been established for so many years or decades as well. So I think this is a very important topic that we can all focus on. I know it's very difficult to work with legislation and laws, but I think it's the infrastructure that we built for the ecosystem. Another I think obstacle we have is the financial infrastructure and financial investment for these new startups. It's not because we don't have money or the capital to invest in companies, but because we don't have the mindset of investment. Many of those people in Iraq and Kurdistan who have the capital to invest have not been educated on how the tech works, how these startup companies can leverage the opportunity and be a great return of investment for them. I think those are very important topics that we should work on, and also we have the lack of tech skills as well. We have so many tech companies right now, but they're all looking for tech skills, and then we have the tech skills, the people who graduate for technical universities, institutes, and they're looking for jobs. Why? Because we have this gap between what the market is asking for and what we are providing as academic institutions and informal and formal education as well. That's where, for example, GIZ and other international NGOs and organizations have been working on, and us as BIT program have been working on to provide at least informal education for the tech ecosystem to make sure that they meet the standards and the demands that the market is asking for. I think I will wrap up my answer to your question in these three different topics. I think the obstacles are the legal frameworks, the financial investments, and then the lack of tech skills that we have in general in Iraq.
Thank you, Hero. I was wondering if maybe Dr. ڕەندی, you can also add from your experience as an entrepreneur and as also a founder of a tech-enabled business. How are you dealing with the lack of tech skills, and how are you trying to build those local skills?
Thank you very much, Safwa, first of all, and thank you for this great event. I would like to personally thank Bakhshi Khan and Hێرۆ Khan for this amazing event and to have organized all of this by two female founders, which is very empowering, I hope. What I would like to add on is that when we are referring to tech skills, we do have tech skills, correct? We have a lot of students currently now at AYS where we are looking forward to allow them to understand how to solve problems using their tech skills, right? It's more about the relevancy when it comes to skill set in creativity, open-mindedness, being confident enough to express your ideas and opinions. And so it's more about what Hێرۆ also mentioned in terms of mindset, right? We do have the tech skills. We have the youth that is very interested and passionate about tech skills, but how we work with that is basically our job as educators and then also founders to evolve the market and the ecosystem technically as well, but also to deliver to Iraqi consumers in a way that they feel like they need it, but also we make things easier for them. But it starts off with creativity. It starts off with innovation and being able to be open to allow team members and your own, let's say, employees to participate in let's say, creativity, to allow them to express their ideas and ask them questions, because in this region we're kind of not very familiar with expression in terms of, all right, we have to ask someone else. There's a supervisor, first of all, that I have to discuss with. And so regardless of that, it's our job to be able to create critical thinking and to be able to encourage critical thinking and creativity and then innovation and at the same time curiosity. What are we curious about? What is the ideal, let's say, outcome that we like to see with this kind of service? Wherever you work, right? You can make progress by just allowing people to brainstorm ideas. ID screening is one of those skills to allow people to express, but also come up with methods, right? You have different types of methods to introduce to teams to say, all right, so you are now not only coming up with great ideas, you're now going to express the worst case scenarios, which allows everybody to kind of progress and also not be embarrassed by their ideas. I think we just need more confidence in expressing ideas and curiosity and then critical thinking and allowing team members to add on to our teams as well and listen to them, right? We can always make use of our feedback. Anything from our team is basically what they deal with. So the needs that they have is basically something that is a skill by themselves to work on it and work from it and through it, right? So I think in terms of tech skills, we need a lot of training programs as well to allow that progress. Education is very important in terms of what type of structure of education you set up. So I think these are the points that I like to today express as well. Yeah.
Thank you. You mentioned the mindset, critical thinking, and also curiosity, and how this maybe starts in early years while we're getting our education. Dr. Heymin, you meet youth at both at your classrooms, and then you meet them as an employer and an entrepreneur. Why do you think the current education system may be not able to give them or enable them with those skills to be fit for the job market later?
Thank you very much for your question, Safwa. Allow me to disagree with you a little bit. If the current education system is not able to provide the workforce that's needed, I can share a very personal feeling right now, right here. I'm sitting on a panel with two of my former students. Hērō, she took 4 years classes with me. She started at AOS with me, and she finished her capstone with me. ڕەندی as well, I supervised her MBA thesis. I participated in her PhD. Sitting on a panel like this with these two amazing ladies as role models shows you what the education system can produce. And as an educator, I can take pride in that. Thank you. 10 years ago, Safwa, if you had put together this event, you would have had a quarter of the turnout, a quarter of these startups, a quarter of these companies. So look what is here right now. We've come a very long way. And this is, keep in mind that in these past 10 years, we've been facing a lot of economic challenges, political challenges, natural challenges, and yet the youth is still pushing forward, is trying, is building things. Now, the education system has been trying hard, but it is also a victim of one flaw in the overall system, and that is lack of diagnosis. The education system, developing programs, whether undergraduate programs, postgraduate programs, whether public universities or private universities in our region, unfortunately, are not driven by long-term strategies and demands and plans. We assume there is lack of tech talents. But how big is the lack of tech talent? How many job postings are there and the employers cannot find employees to fill the positions? At what level there are lack of tech talents? Are we talking about digital literacy, people who know how to use Google Suite and PowerPoint and give presentation and post on social media? Or are we talking about people who strategize companies' digital intelligence and data analytics and digital marketing, for example? The lack of these insights make us continue to make assumptions and continue on assumptions. If the movement that we see over the last 10 years, as I mentioned, in this sector, has been strategically planned, we would have had much more impact. This progress has been organically produced. And organically, obviously, you hit some and you miss probably many. I think what we need to do is we need to make the education system respond to the future plan of the country, and that requires research. I'm putting on my academic hat here, as you know. As an analytic person, I like to see theories, to see experiments, to test, and then to conclude. And then say, well, we have this many, for example, openings in full stack development, and we need to develop this many people to be full stack developers in the future. So I agree there is probably a lack, but unless we really diagnose how big and where and what kind of lack there is, as the education system, it would be hard to respond to that. Our response has been so far, as I mentioned, organically and natural, and it has produced part of this and these two young ladies, as I see.
You mentioned something very important, is that what do we mean by tech skills? When we are talking, are we talking basic things like being familiar with just Microsoft Office, or are we talking more digital skills like people who are programmers? I wonder if any of you as founders and entrepreneurs, how do you define what tech skills is?
Again, it's a skill ladder. It is similar to engineers. Do we have lack of civil engineers in this country? I doubt it. It's people, you know, hundreds and thousands of people with civil engineering degrees on their diploma. But how much and how many true civil engineering projects are we really conducting in this country and making use of those skills? And when we do not make use of those skills, what happens to those skills? They basically fade away. So that is the issue that we have to work on, is that we have to define the ladder of the skills and then define where we have the largest gap, for example, and which entities should respond to which gaps. Yōhānەs Full Stack Bootcamp sits at the above average, let's say, level, because a bootcamp developer is someone who really sits down and develops a system. It is a much higher skill level than, let's say, social media posting or graphic design or basic web maintenance. But it is at a lower level than a data analyst who can use machine learning to crunch data and to predict the future. So we can basically use whatever has worked in other countries in terms of defining those skills, but we have to be able to measure the amount of gap in each skill and respond to the gaps accordingly together. Institutions of private institutions, public institutions, as well as our partners in the NGOs and civic society who are working on developing these tech skills.
So we believe that building tech skills is a shared responsibility. It's the responsibility of the education system, also the partners and implementers of trainings and programs, and maybe startups themselves also can do training when they acquire employees in order to prepare them to do their jobs or to match the demands of the position they're in. I was wondering, Yōhānەs, if you can tell us a bit about the ICT programs and what they are doing in terms of addressing this tech skills in youth. And I would not say it's lack, since we haven't actually defined what lack is, but what are you maybe addressing skills at which levels and what are you doing, and maybe your insight about the youth skills in this industry.
Sure. Can you hear me, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah?
All good.
Okay, perfect. First of all, thanks a lot for giving me a little break after my speech and letting the others speak, because the dusty environment and speaking for a long time, it's quite nice to have a little bit of a break in between. But I would first like to just comment on what you said, Dr. Hemming, because I think it was a really nice introduction into this topic, and also a comment on my speech earlier, and I agree with what you said. But I think we can speak about a lack. Maybe not a big lack between the private sector's demand for ICT personnel and the supply of ICT personnel by academia, because we always have to consider that the ICT sector is still very small. It's a niche sector, so we cannot talk about huge gaps. We cannot talk about a huge gap because, and that's also where I agree with you, Dr. Hammond, when we talk to our private sector partners, there are not hundreds and thousands of vacant positions in ICT. That's not the fact. So there's no big lack, but in the long term, considering the global development in digital transformation, there could be and probably will be a big lack if we don't invest in digital skills development and especially advanced digital skills development. and it's really, I think it's very important to start as early as possible, because I think the academia supplies ICT personnel on a level that is, let's say, junior, let's say a junior level. A junior developer needs a lot of time, expertise, and also, you know, sort of experience on the job to develop into a senior developer. And that can take years. It can take quite a long time until you have a developer who's really good at what she or he is doing. And starting now, training youth in these fields now really covers and prepares the country for a phase where there will be more demand from the private sector, more demand than it is currently demanded and also shown by our private sector partners. We focus in our programs on advanced digital skills. We don't focus on digital literacy. We develop training programs together with our partners, such as POTAN in the field of full stack development, data visualization, UI, UX design, even artificial intelligence, which is another topic, I think, that is quite present. Everyone knows ChatGPT and has probably already used it, but AI doesn't have any employment or hardly any employment potential at the moment. But it will have. It might have that employment potential in future. Right now, when we talk to our private sector partners, there's maybe one person working on machine learning and data science, and the trainings that we develop are not basically, all the graduates cannot be matched with employment opportunities in AI. They can be matched in other jobs, any programming jobs, because they learn programming. So AI is a transferable. Basically, you learn the basics to receive jobs in other sectors. But in the long term, skills in AI will lead to employment, and I think we have to consider the short term and the long term, and consider starting training these youth as early as possible.
By the way, we have a workshop on leveraging environment protection using data analysis right now in parallel happening. workshopێک مان هەیە سەبارەت بە پاراستنی ژینگە لە ڕێگەی زانستی داتا و هەر کەسێک حەزی لە وەرکشۆپەش هەبوو ئەتوانێت جوینیان کات.
I want to go back, maybe a step back. You mentioned that your programs is doing advanced digital skills, like programming. I was wondering, we don't have this, maybe the mindset or the desire to join these kind of jobs. We're very programmed to follow a certain path, and kind of the term of success for Iraqi students is also very defined. You have to go maybe medical careers that are more stable, or public sector's job. Is there a chance that we were talking about skills, but maybe how to create this demand first? How can we bring people to maybe follow those paths, go into programming or learn a new digital skills, or coding or data analysis, or these kind of fields? How can we attract them to do this? I was wondering if any of the panelists maybe have their opinion. Yeah, please, Dr.
Can I jump in? It's a very, very good question, Safwa. GIZ, for example, one of their greatest programs, as Yۆهانەس mentioned, is the boot camp. And they come very handy in bridging the gap between the point of graduation and the point of employment. But if GIZ, and I don't know how it works, okay, so don't count on me, but if GIZ brings these youth, train them on full stack development, and let them go out and tell them, you go and find jobs yourselves, then GIZ is doing exactly what the government universities are doing. Okay, so it has to bridge the gap between finding the skills and delivering the skills to these students, and finding opportunities that these skills will be applied, so these people can see themselves in these roles, can improve themselves. that is one of our issues with the education system, is that we do not communicate with the future employer of our graduates. And this is true on a grand level. The Minister of Higher Education was attending our commencement ceremony, and he mentioned about 80,000 plus graduates from universities we had this year from the Kurdistan region. And he mentioned, I quote him, he mentioned that I'm not sure if all 80,000 will find jobs in Kurdistan, and definitely not all 80,000 will find jobs. So that's why the education system has to be driven by the future demands of employment and how to respond to those employments. SMEs can play a very important role in that because they are smaller, they can be more agile, they can be more adaptive, and they can be also more adventurous in taking risks rather than government departments, for example. So as SMEs, we could train the SMEs, force them, encourage them to take these graduates from these boot camps or with these tech skills and help them develop as well as implement their skills. I hope I helped answer your question.
You helped immensely. I was wondering if any of Dr. ڕەندی or هێرۆ have their insight on this, because you're hiring probably fresh graduates, people who are maybe juniors in terms of digital skills. How are you preparing them or training them to deal with the challenges of this job or position?
May I go first? So as Dr. Hēmін said, most of the progress that has been done in the past 10 years has been organic progress. So for example, most of the employees that I hired, they didn't learn from universities. It was self-learning, internet, and they were somehow privileged enough to speak English so they could find resources online. And sometimes you are limited. You will find like 2-3 employees who know how to do the job. But then when you grow and as you scale, then your options are actually limited. Like what we do in general, we do take interns. Like for example, especially to keep gender balance. Like when I started my company, after a year, like I had like 5 employees, and they were all guys, male. And then I was like, wait a moment, what are we doing here? Like, what is the problem here? So I had to actually be very proactive about it, and then announce an internship just for female software developers, and then train them inside the company, give them the opportunity. And now, for example, some of them are my full-time employees. So I think it's very important for SME startups and the private sector to take responsibility and be proactive regarding these issues we are facing, because at the end of the day, this is the reality. Traditional businesses are going away, and they're all going to be tech-enabled in some point or another. So if you want to scale your business, or even if you want to stay in the market and make money, you have to have the people in your companies and that skills. If the government is not helping, if the education system is not sufficient, then you as private sector who is benefiting from this has to take the action. So I think, for example, internship programs, trainings are very important, and it's very important especially for big corporates, telecommunication companies, ISPs, tech unicorns to realize this and start working on training people and, for example, financing informal boot camps or just doing the trainings themselves. I think in my opinion, I don't want to disagree with anyone, and I'm very scared to disagree with Dr. Hēmін because he's my professor. But I think the lack is already there. I wish Yadgar was here today. Yadgar is the founder of CEO. He was just mentioning like how hard it's for them to find developers. Like they need a product engineers, and they have to teach them from zero to product engineer. And this is taking a lot of effort, but you will have no other choice. Unless you did this in the market, I think you have no other option. So I think the private sector taking responsibility instead of depending on the government and the education system and complaining all the time about the lack of skills is very important.
I definitely think it's a very shared responsibility. Everyone should take their role, and we cannot blame one system despite the other, because everyone has a role in shaping those youth until they get to the job market. And I understand maybe how hard it is to get employees with those skills, because the current existing skills, the graduating from theoretical-based systems, I kind of disagree with Dr. Hammond saying that the product of an education system we see here today, because this is the exception. I don't think this is the rule. I think AUIS did an amazing job in preparing their youth and equipping them with the skills to match the job market. Other universities, maybe in the education system, have yet to catch up with this. I'll do a little transition since we're talking about youth skills and tech. And we know since the pandemic happened, a lot of tech-enabled companies started adopting a remote work model, or at least a hybrid model, to kind of catch up with the change happening and not to close, maybe to work more sustainably. And we see that few companies maybe try this in Iraq. I was wondering if the current youth skills evaluation would be ready to embrace a remote work system. My question would be to Hērō. Have you tried to experiment with this, since most of your employees work in very high advanced tech skills jobs? And what are the drawbacks and disadvantages of this model?
I personally believe the concept of hybrid and remote work is not very straightforward. I think it's not very easy to implement, but I think it's very beneficial. Like, even when I was an employee myself, I would appreciate like having a few days working from home, and I don't think it had lessened my productivity at all, but made me be more comfortable in the place I liked and work on the job I was assigned to. But I think when you scale as a company, like for example, in my company, we do have the flexibility sometimes. My employees work from home some days, and some days they work in the office. But I think it's very hard to manage. So I don't think the youth hates remote work. The youth loves the remote work, but I'm not sure if the companies and the private sector is ready to manage the communication between all of these people who work hybrid, remote, or on-site. Especially when you go on scale. I think when you have, for example, tens and hundreds of employees, it needs a lot of expertise to manage these teams. But I think the benefits of remote work are clear, whether it's your mental wellness, whether it's your balance of life and work balance, whether it's the productivity that's going to increase by itself, just thinking that you have the freedom of choice of when you want to do the work and where do you want to do the work.
Does this affect maybe on talent retention or acquisition?
Yeah, I think especially people in tech, there is the hype, for example, for remote work, and we do follow all of these trends globally. And then when there's the trend globally, for example, there are a lot of companies, for example, from Germany, from Europe, that are hiring tech skills here, and people are working remotely. This is an opportunity for the market, but also a threat for companies here to make sure that you're not losing talent, that your employees are not working remotely for somewhere else. You have to have the flexibility as well, give them benefits to make sure you match the offers that the outside world is offering them. I think it's this remote work, like especially when it involves working for Europe and US, it's both opportunity for the youth and then threat for the companies. That's why you need to always catch up.
Dr. ڕەندی, I was wondering what is your take, since you are also working and you have an e-commerce platform for local artisan, and your team works in tech. Have you experimented with this, and what is your view on the advantages and drawbacks?
Yes, so definitely we have experimented with remote work and hybrid work, and I think it's very effective, if I may add on to that. Not only are we catching up with the global, let's say, trend of globalism overall and international business, but we're also looking into allowing team members to work productively, right? So in terms of productivity, it's very enhancing to companies to add on remote work, because we like to see not longer work hours, but more productivity and progress within our companies and startups, but also the growth of our own employees, right? So if you're looking into productivity and making sure that your action plans are on track, you have a strategy, you're reaching milestones, and you have a progressive, let's say, amount of, let's say, tech platforms and tools to actually be able to track all of those transitions and track all of these milestones, but also the progress within your team. And so being able to cohesively work, I think there's just a little issue with remote work, is that we as humans like to interact with people and team members, and I think that spirit is also necessary, right? So I don't agree with completely a full remote work, but allowing remote work and encouraging it more, normalizing it more for productivity, allowing the team to really express themselves in terms of, okay, I'm going to actually go by the plan and strategy and reach my, let's say, milestone that is actually necessary. But at the same time, we want also teamwork. We also want discussions and meetings, and also not discourage and demotivate our team members within a company as well, right? So you need that spirit, definitely. But looking into the implementation of how there is a massive lack of employment, recruitment, and challenges here in this region, I think just adding on remote work, we can also reduce costs by being able to employ and recruit others that could remotely work but deliver our tasks, where we don't need to hire someone that is actually increasing our costs and also not able to remotely work, right? So you can actually hire much more in terms of students, internship programs, but also people that are looking for a job but can't find it because they have to actually be, for example, in another city, right? So we can actually recruit more, be more flexible, and also be open to it, that you can actually deliver higher tasks and also expand if you want to expand your business. If it doesn't work here, you face a lot of challenges, you can go to similar regions like Kurdistan or Iraq that could actually deliver the productivity for you, right, in terms of expanding your team and business. So there's a lot of opportunity there that we should see, but at the same time also consider what is necessary for team spirit to also be motivated enough to stay with the company.
I was wondering if you have implemented any effective methods where you can keep the team spirit, the company culture, the teamwork high while still working remotely or on a hybrid mode.
Yeah, so I am a business kind of, I have a business approach rather than tech approaches, right? So when it comes to tech, even that I was not very much involved in tech skills, I could see a vision within a business through tech, right? So looking into tech and being able to work with tech and also see a business approach, I think the vision is very important, to know what the direction of the company is, what the intention of the company is, what kind of growth we like to see, what are we working on. So being able to direct your team in terms of saying your input can add on to the economy, your input can add on to the tech ecosystem. Your input is actually valuable, it's just not in task, right? So you are able to communicate regularly, being able to also follow up with your team, be able to discuss the needs and challenges that they're facing currently, right? So it's always about being able to keep on track. And we have this principle called guiding principle, where whenever you go towards a project or wherever you're trying to implement something and reach something as a company in terms of strategy, you're looking into what are our guiding principles. No matter how challenging it is, we are going to look into what we're meant to do, why we're here doing this in the first place. And so kind of being able to have principles within your company is also a corporate culture perspective to also input, right, within your, let's say, team's spirit, as we refer back to it again, yeah.
I also work in kind of hybrid between remote and between in the office, and after the pandemic, I started prioritizing flexibility, that I don't have to be there at the office every day, and it's more productive work if I can work from wherever, whenever. If I'm still meeting my deadlines, of course, and doing the job I'm supposed to do. But I think it's kind of tricky, since you mentioned your insight as employers, how you build this trust with the employee, that you trust them to do their job eventually at the end of the day while you're giving them the privilege of being away. I was wondering if, Dr. Hēmīn, you can also add an insight about how does this remote work model could contribute to maybe the tech ecosystem? What are the potentials or opportunities we can leverage from it?
Thank you for the question. I think we know that most, if not all, of the possible remote work are made possible through tech. So they either use tech as the means or they use tech as the goal in terms of delivery. So the technology component has a big role in the component. And as Hērō and ڕەندی covered it very well, is that remote work allow you to outsource the tech skills that you might not find in your own city, especially living and being situated in a city like as small as Suleimani compared to other cities, some other cities in the country or even in the neighboring countries. But it comes with its own disadvantages as well, as they very well also mentioned it. It adds to the admin burden, and you as the administrator, as the manager, you have to be willing to take on the additional burden and load in order to employ and make use of that specific skill or the skill of a group of people. Even we as adults, when we move to online classes, some of us among our faculty colleagues were finding it very hard to have the same commitment and energy and enthusiasm about teaching their classes compared to the time when we were dressing up and going to classes and interacting with students. I was in administration back then, and I realized that my admin burden was tripled and quadrupled just to make sure that people do the bare minimum that they are doing naturally. So it comes with its own challenges. And that burden is not only on the manager, it's on the person who's delivering the work as well, because it requires discipline. It requires discipline to spend and put in the amount of time that you are expected to put in, not less, but also being careful not to put in much more, because especially in tech, it's very seductive. Sometimes we all know what we are talking about. You spend 10 hours, 12 hours on the computer solving a problem, and you forget about eating and drinking and taking a shower and sleeping, for example. So the discipline, the self-discipline is necessary to keep the right balance between the expected work required and the rest of what life has to offer to you. I hope I answered.
You were mentioning about how your burden and responsibility tripled while moving to online education. I was wondering how you kept maybe the students motivated to perform, to pass the test, to do their homework through this transition.
We soon realized that a hybrid model is the solution, not a fully remote work. As soon as the dangers of the pandemic eased off a little bit, we started making some assessments and some activities on campus rather than having it entirely remotely. So that hybrid mode gives the flexibility to the student as well as some kind of obligation and commitment to come back and to interact and to engage together. With my faculty and with my team, I found the solution was very easy. Just arrange for picnics and dinners every now and then you bring everyone together and they know that, oh, we are part of a team, we are part of a department, and we continue to do our work.
This is a great solution. I definitely feel this being socially isolated when I'm working remotely, and it's very hard to be connected with the team, especially if you're working on projects that kind of need solo execution, and you kind of lose sight of maybe the bigger picture or the mission you're on. But still, things like what you mentioned could definitely build on teamwork or team spirit, and people feel like they are part of something bigger. Speaking of online education, I know the ICT also has a lot of initiatives and programs that might implemented hybrid or remote models. Did you reap the benefits of those models? How did it affect the enrollment, or what people learned, or their commitment to the programs?
We have implemented both hybrid and completely online training programs, and I'm gonna keep it quite short because the main impact that especially remote training programs had were the increase in female participation. That was the biggest influence that switching in some of our training programs to merely remote. For example, from 2021 to 2022, we saw an increase of was a total of 16 or 17% in female participation in our advanced digital skills training programs. I think that's quite a high number. The second statistic I want to share is that only 5 to 10% of our participants of the advanced digital skills training programs dropped out. With 25 participants, that's a maximum of 2 dropouts in remote training programs. A maximum. Usually, we hardly have any dropouts in our programs, but for remote training programs, I think that's quite a good statistic. We have reached, first of all, more women through remote training programs, but also participants who couldn't come to, for example, Baghdad or Erbil or Sully, where most of our training programs are taking place. We have certain operational areas where we can support, but we also do include interested participants from other governorates. So we saw quite a rise in participants in these training programs through the inclusion of remote models. But I mean, personally, I prefer hybrid models. It's because of the more intense exchange between the participants in the training programs. I think remote training programs really have a lot of advantages, but hybrid really brings more advantages to it due to the increased exchange and and also the community that develops through the on-site training programs.
Thank you so much, Yۆهانەس. I was wondering if any of the panelists have maybe thought what ways we can empower startups or small businesses to implement or be open-minded at least to hybrid models.
So should I answer it since you're looking
Please
at
go.
me? I think as a small medium enterprise myself, I think I would be encouraged by support, right? So from all of these diverse programs that are available, from these amazing, let's say, educators in terms of objective they have for the Iraqi ecosystem to enhance, I think receiving support of training programs, giving them training programs, providing them with free training programs for their employees, team members, and allowing that corporate culture to be very clear and also familiar, right? So that you kind of are also encouraged to hire more and train people more, but also be able to allow it to add on to your own progress as a, let's say, startup yourself, right? So I think how we could be encouraged is not only funding and all of those, let's say, urgent, let's say, asks that we have in terms of funding. There's a lack of funding, there's a lack of support, but also when it comes to team members, we need to also be provided with training programs that is inclusive and is also beneficial to the outcome of our own team spirit at the end of the day. So I think as a support that you're kind of asking in terms of how can we be helped and what would be beneficial is to be provided with training programs, because honestly, we do not know where to send them. Right? And also when it comes to our own skill set, we are one way or another an expertise or a professional in one or two skill sets that we can actually train about and train our team members. But there should be certain training programs provided by professionals and expertise within that type of, let's say, department that is needed to be able to be implemented as supported by other programs and organizations that are already doing an amazing job, but what we can also always continue to learn from is the problems that we're facing is training programs when it comes to remote work, when it comes to teams growth, and then being able to also acquire new talent and acquisition of new employees. So providing them with team training programs allows not only to maintain a strong team, but also grow a business further in terms of the economy, in terms of progress as well and growth.
Thank you so much, ڕەندی. As we move forward to concluding this panel, I'll go back maybe to the first step, the first building block, which is education. Dr. Heymin, you are the director of the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Department at AUIS. What are maybe the main insights or key lessons you learned from your experience that would prepare the youth to this digital era, to find a job in the private sector and in the tech industry?
As employees or as entrepreneurs?
As employees.
The Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center does not work on producing employees as much as it's focused on the entrepreneurs, on supporting the founders, for example, coaches and mentors to the entrepreneur as founders, and developing investors to develop the ecosystem. So the focus is on entrepreneurs and founders. The academic side of the house, however, focuses on developing employees and preparing, creating the workforce to enter the market. As I mentioned, the education system, I believe, keeping in mind that it has been working organically rather than being driven by a larger kind of strategy, has been doing a good job. If we focus on, for example, if we use AUIS as an example, AUIS works on a more transformational aspect rather than on a technical aspect. So we bring people in and we hope and we try to transform them as individuals by the time they graduate, regardless of whatever major they choose to study and whatever technicalities they get. That transformation makes them more mature and more responsible and a more valuable commodity to any workforce that they join. Obviously includes the technical skills, whether they graduate from the technical degrees, includes the English language skills, includes as well as the presentation and interpersonal skills. As the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center, we would like to see the entrepreneurs and founders seek more knowledge and self-education on how to be, a better entrepreneur, how to be better at building businesses, running businesses, all aspects of it. Now, as an entrepreneur, you don't have to be good at everything, but you have to continuously seek improving your knowledge base and your skills. That's something that we are struggling with in the center, to be honest. Some of our programs, as amazing as they are in terms of opportunities, we find recruiting the right participants to the programs very hard. And that has been a challenge that we are working on with our partners, with our donors, but it is one of the challenges that we are facing as the center.
As we're speaking about partners and donors, I wonder what the ICT overlook about what are the strategies maybe or initiatives that we can do to promote this digital transformation that's happening in Iraq currently, or how can we accelerate it further?
I think that's quite a big question that I would also, at this point, I would actually also like to rather hear from the audience, what feedback the audience has to what has been said, because I think if I dive into this question now, I can't answer that in a few sentences. So I would suggest that we maybe move on to the audience reacting to our statements.
We can definitely, if we have a mic around, that we can send through the audience if anyone has any feedback or suggestions or questions that they can share.
You have a question? Mike?
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Sasan from Iraq, from Sulaimani. I am entrepreneur and doctor. I have my own business and own company. For our country, or in Iraq, or in Kurdistan, we have many solutions for business or own business. Many company now, it is available in all over the country. About 30,000 company, they call direct selling company. This company will offer you a system and offer you a training course and will support you to do your own business without any risk, without any capitals. So we should encourage our people, and also in the institute or in AUAS in Slimani to talk about the direct selling company. It is a very important issue. I don't know why they don't concentrate on a direct selling company. I don't know. Do you know what is direct selling company? There is many direct selling company. We are in Iraq. We have many. Also in Europe, in Gulf, in all over the country. It is a not new business. It's about 120 years old, their ages. But I don't know why this issue is not concentrate about it. We know we want a revolution. Start with me, with you. We can help each other and to provide such businesses to all people in our country, not only the graduate or postgraduate. Any people can take benefit from direct selling company. So this is my idea, because I work with this company since 4 years, and it is very amazing business without any challenges or capitals or any risks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if anyone else, if you would like to address this, maybe, if anyone. Maybe we can move to someone else to provide any feedback about how we can optimize the digital transformation in Iraq, or if you have any question for the panelists.
I mean, maybe I can say just a few words. I don't want to take too much time away from the audience, but in general, what GIZ is trying to do is contributing to the building up of a tech ecosystem or to digital transformation in Iraq is, first of all, supplying the necessary skilled workforce for digital transformation, and also companies or startups who contribute to the digital transformation and can also leverage the digital transformation but also drive the digital transformation in Iraq. These are the two main pillars. Another pillar that we are also engaging more and more in is basically regional exchange between Iraq and the MENA region, but also beyond that. In our team, for example, we have one colleague who was recruited specifically for that reason, to also foster the exchange between Iraq and Germany in that case. So these are basically some of the engagements that some of the fields that we engage in, but yeah, I would also really like to hear more from the audience. If there's anything that you would like to comment on what has been said. Niall.
Yes, thank you very much. Niall Ardle, I'm a colleague of Johannes's at the ICT for Youth project. I have a question for the two academics. We spoke about that there is not a lack of tech skills that were generated enough for the current needs, but one of the issues that we see when we talk to private sector companies is the lack of the entrepreneurial mindset of graduates and employees. I've previously worked at universities in Jordan and in other countries in Eastern Europe about creating an entrepreneurial university where we create problem-solving, creative kind of oriented solutions amongst not just entrepreneurship and business and tech, but across all STEM subjects, and developing curricula in line with this, very much focused on ensuring that the student or the future employee is at the center of coming up with the problem, or coming up with the solution to the problem, rather than the top-down approach that we currently see. So Are universities, and AOIS might be an exception here, but are other universities in Iraq working towards creating an entrepreneurial mindset, meaning a problem-solving mindset amongst graduates currently? And if so, what are they doing to do that? So, yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you for your question, Niall. I will have to start with AUS since I represent the university and I know much more about the university. At AUS, as you know closely, we do work on creative thinking, problem solving and entrepreneurship very seriously and directly. Dr. ڕەندی is actually one of the professors who taught creativity and innovation at AUS and who taught entrepreneurship at AUS. Our hope at some point was to develop a minor in entrepreneurship, so students can major in regardless of the majors, they can also study a minor in entrepreneurship. That program itself has not developed completely yet, but the two courses that we mentioned are part of that. I personally have been teaching creative coding and computing, which combines creativity and coding into one fun interactive course. I also am aware that some other universities are incorporating courses on entrepreneurship into their curriculum. A couple of years ago, we had the panel at Erbil Rotana, and one of the faculty members from Ishik University mentioned that they have submitted a proposal to launch an entire major in entrepreneurship to the Ministry of Higher Education. I'm not up to date whether that proposal was accepted, whether the university is going forward with it or not. I know that for example, another public university in Erbil is teaching entrepreneurship to their students regardless of their major. So entrepreneurship as a course is taken across the different majors. So I think there are efforts and there are changes in the curriculum. Bear in mind that adding a new course or modifying the curriculum, especially in public universities, is a very, very tedious process. It's much easier and more flexible in the private universities, but public universities, the process is kind of way more complicated and time-consuming. So there are efforts as well, but the efforts are, again, they are popped up individually and organically rather than being driven by a high-level strategy and market demand in the future.
Yes, and if I may add on, I think it's still new. Entrepreneurship, no matter how many years we've been working on it and have been within the dynamic of the whole approach and the concept behind it, I think it's still new in this region. If we are speaking generally, it's new and it's kind of risky as well when it comes to entrepreneurship and the concept behind it when we tell others to take this course, because this course is about taking risks and to be able to come up with a business that solves a certain problem, right? So who wants to study that? So if you're looking into the concept of it, it's kind of risky, and we also have to consider that entrepreneurship should be a course. It should be a major. I have proposed this to our own business department and administration I think 4 months ago, but it's still not approved. It takes time, right? It takes time at our private university, but consider also how long it will take for public university to adapt to that concept and the importance of it, right? We should also speak more regularly about the impact that entrepreneurship could have and the impact that it could have on the economy as well and then the economic growth, and also to be part of the globalism that we're speaking about, right? When you think about technology and entrepreneurship, it is kind of everybody's responsibility as a collective, let's say, action to take part in. And we already do that from our own places. If we are looking into problem solving and if you're catching something that we face a challenge with, we want to fix that problem. And so when you think about entrepreneurship, it's not as a huge concept as we make out of it, but it's more about the education, the examples that we can set forth, but also courses that we can introduce. So in terms of innovation and creativity program that we initiated, and it was not taught at AYS even for 3 years. Now it is initiated again because there is an importance to it, and also it's important to adjust that mindset and to be able to kind of put a focus on the importance of creating recruitment through entrepreneurship, but at the same time, how can we make changes ourselves? So I think looking into progress globally, it's already something that we need to be playing part in, and also have a major role and responsibility to deliver that and speak up about it as well, and to be able to initiate and push through the progress as well in terms of why this is important, why this is necessary, and what could be the outcome, what could be the impact collectively if we are being part of globalism, right? So I think it's very important to think and consider that. In terms of public schools and public universities, I think they're kind of open to programs being allowed to their universities to train their students, and they're of course open to it, and these organizations could help them enhance it. But at the same time, maybe organizations could be a good approach and an initiative to actually suggest and say to any department of university to say, have you considered entrepreneurship? And this is what we have researched on. This is our proposal for you guys, and we will fund it. Maybe there could be possibilities. Again, we're referring to problem solving, right? So looking into that as well, it's a problem. It's a challenge itself, but it's also a problem that we could speak about and also kind of find new ways to introduce to public universities as well, because it's important. We're facing recruitment challenges. Not only that, we're facing employment challenges in terms of finding the right skills, and then at the same time, we don't know where to actually go to work after we have graduated, right? Generally speaking, we have no idea where to go. So if entrepreneurship is something that is very diverse, it's not one concept, and you're not becoming a doctor or a dentist or let's say an engineer, you're rather speaking about there is a pool of opportunities and it's endless and limitless, but here's the concept behind it. And so that kind of introduces a very different mindset already, right? So I think that's my approach, and that's my thoughts currently on your question. I hope I've answered it correctly.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if anyone else in the audience might have a question.
Hello.
Can we get the mic?
Yeah, I already have it. Okay, I am Tina Karim. I am from UNWFP, and I'm so happy to be part of this discussion and this event. Thank you for this. I would like to mention that currently I am leading a program called Jusur all over Iraq. We have the same objective of enhancing the digital literacy and the skills for the youth in Iraq. We target the youth from age 18 to 35. And I would like to mention and compliment on what Niall was asking about the public universities. In terms of sustainability, we've targeted the public universities and 9 universities in Iraq. And we've started the pilot successfully in University of Suleimania back in 2020, but the first one was with the American University back in 2017. So that let's say our pilot went very successful, and we've managed to accelerate to the other governorates in Iraq. So thank you for this, and I hope we can have later on a bilateral discussion to achieve a better outcome for this event. And also I would like to mention that our program objective is to have an entire ecosystem, including the learning until the end of the job placement, or availing any kind of livelihood opportunities for our graduates, including entrepreneurship, financial inclusion, as well as life skill development. Of course, the IT and the English part is an essential part of the learning in the beginning, and then it will be complemented by the other 3 components. So thank you for that, and hopefully we will have another discussion. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that there are other initiatives happening around trying to ease this transition or pipeline from university students until they get to the private sector and entrepreneurial scene. So we kind of reduce this gap and bridge it together. I was wondering if there are any other questions in the audience, maybe? All right, so I think we will conclude with one last question. I was wondering, Hero, as an IT startup founder, what are any new developments or trends you're looking at, and how you're trying to capitalize on these opportunities, and what also tech entrepreneurs can do to capitalize on them?
I think the digital transformation of the industries, like all industries currently operating in Iraq, is a huge opportunity. You can tackle the health industry, you can tackle the logistics industry, you can tackle the management industry, anything in the market, and because it's not digitized and everyone is going through digitization, so I think this is a great opportunity for every IT company and startup to direct their products to any of these different paths. And I think the opportunities are huge. The opportunities is there. We have good infrastructure for IT development. We have very young population that we can use and teach the tech skills that we need to leverage this market. And we have the internet infrastructure which is very impressive sometimes. So I think the market is ready, and the opportunities just takes us to, build all of these components together and then have the vision of how to implement these ideas and take these opportunities in the market.
Thank you so much, Hero. Thank you to all the panelists for your valuable contributions and your insights and your sharing your experience with us. And thank you for the audience to listening to our discussion today. I hope you had a wonderful afternoon and you continue to have it throughout this day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.